So I was listening to a Trash Taste episode that I missed, and I was really glad to hear them give some attention to Wonder Egg Priority, which is like the best anime of the winter season, other than Attack on Titan. It was a good discussion comparing it to Fooly Cooly, and then eventually going into a larger discussion about finding the deeper meaning in entertainment media. But speaking of that, Garnt apparently didn't understand what the deeper meaning was, and he also says he didn't completely understand what happened. What? How? So the comparison to Fooly Cooly is a good one, but not because Wonder Egg is confusing. This show is nowhere near Fooly Cooly in terms of being confusing. I'd say this show is like if Fooly Cooly was made by KyoAni. Except, like Fooly Cooly, this show has the characters fight monsters, which are like surreal representations of issues the characters are facing. However, the themes in Wonder Egg are a lot easier to digest compared to the typical Gainax show. The visuals are more focused on being uniquely pretty than uniquely expressive, and the insanity which is present in a lot of Gainax/Trigger shows is replaced with more of a focus on females. The comparison to Fooly Cooly is most relevant in how the two shows deliver information to the viewer. Both shows stand out from most other anime by presenting the story to the viewer in a faster, more interesting, and more engaging way than typical anime. For example, here's an exposition scene from Re:Zero. Meanwhile, Wonder Egg is able to deliver information at a much faster rate. For example, in the flashback scene we have the first time Ai and Koito talk to each other. Koito notices Ai's heterochromia, and then after a worried expression from Ai, we jump to her alone under a bridge. We then see Koito sitting alone, looking at an umbrella on the ground and Ai's bag still next to her. From this, the viewer should be able to realize that Ai left in a hurry right after Koito saw her eye, meaning she doesn't like other people noticing her heterochromia. The scene then manages to communicate even more information by playing the vocal clip of Ai's mom asking about the things she left behind, informing the viewer that Ai had gone home without going back to get her things, while the scene still visually focuses on events before the dialogue.
Ai-chan? 忘れた。何かあったの？何にもない！
We cut to someone carrying the things she left behind and ringing a doorbell, causing Ai to flinch. We can easily infer that the person is carrying Ai's stuff to her house, that this person is probably Koito, and that Ai is scared. All this information, except for the dialogue between Ai and her mom, which wasn't even that necessary to the scene, was communicated visually. The part that stood out to me the most was the few seconds of Ai under the bridge. The show takes these few seconds to focus on Ai's emotions while alone and her interaction with her mom at the same time. It reminded me of the fire starter scene from Fooly Cooly, except that show takes this idea to an even greater level by playing multiple different dialogue clips and loud music on top of the main character's narration. Both these scenes are more difficult to understand than typical anime exposition, and some viewers might even have to watch these scenes more than once to fully process everything. But it's great that they're both trying to deliver more information and more emotion than what you'd normally see. This is the only part of the first episode which I could actually see someone not getting the first time, unless you aren't able to process the very basic idea that the characters are traveling into some sort of dream world to fight monsters. But honestly, this moment just made me realize I needed to use my brain a bit more. This show's story should not be confusing. In fact, this is probably just the most engaging show of this season, other than Attack on Titan. And a huge part of that is because of the way the story is told. And so calling it confusing because of these great directing choices is kind of just discrediting the work of the creators. So it really should be easy to understand the basic plot of Wonder Egg Priority, just based on the first episode. Oto Ai was a loner with no friends until she met Koito, who committed suicide probably due to bullying and Ai's lack of help. In the present, Ai is contacted by some supernatural being which gives her a chance to make up for her guilt over not doing enough to help her friend, by learning how to save other people in the dream world. The Trash Taste Boys also discussed how shows like this tend to have a deeper meaning that the viewer is supposed to find. So let's see how hard it is to decipher Wonder Egg. After a conversation with a cicada, we are left with Miss Oto and an egg, which is hard to crack. She finds herself in a school in a dream world where distorted girls are bullying someone. The toilet paper tells Ai to crack the egg, and so she puts in more effort this time and manages to crack the shell, causing a girl to hatch. And oh my god, there's monsters trying to kill her. They're called See No Evils. I wonder what that could mean. Oh, and there's a voice on the speaker that literally says this.
クラスでいじめられている子がいたらどうすればいいでしょうかそうもちろん正解は見て見ぬふりです
What could it mean? I talks with the girl a bit, kind of makes a connection, but then lets her get chased alone by the bullying metaphor, since she knows they won't attack her. But then, she finds a statue on the roof, which is where we learn about Ai's past with Koito, and most importantly that Koito killed herself. Ai reflects on this, saying that it's her fault Koito died, and then Koito's statue is actually crying, and her tears fall onto Ai's face, representing how Koito's sadness also affects Ai, and the tear drips into Ai's mouth and she swallows it. Okay, I'm not sure about that last part, but Ai sees the bullying metaphor going after her new friend, and she says she's sick of this. She's done pretending to not see, and so she leaps to help and kills the representation of the people bullying this girl. What does it mean? I'm so confused. Not understanding the message of this show is on the level of people not getting what Kill la Kill was trying to say after watching episode 3. Let me just hypothesize a bit. So, there was an egg, which had a hard shell, but then inside of it was a girl who I kind of became friends with while helping her with her issues. Wow, it's almost like the show is showing how people have a hard shell that isn't easy to break through, but once you actually try, you might be able to make a connection with someone. Whoa, dude, that's crazy. Despite the obvious metaphors, I found myself connecting a lot with Ai. Miss Oto closes herself off from the outside world, even in her own room. While I don't exactly relate to deliberately being a loner, I do relate to how she doesn't really put in enough effort to stay with friends. Even though she had a nice conversation with this girl, she doesn't feel pushed enough to help her with the See No Evils. That is, until she reflects on her past relationship with Koito. In episode 1, we can assume that the reason Ai believes she betrayed her friend is similar to what was happening in the dream world, and this is confirmed in episode 2 with the scene where she is too scared to take a video of the bullies. The See No Evils don't attack her, so why not just stand back and worry about yourself? A few years ago, there was a Snapchat story of a fight in a restroom at my high school. Someone told me that they saw me in the background walk into the restroom, notice what was happening, and immediately turn around and walk out. In that specific story, there probably isn't much that I could have done, but I feel like it pretty much represents how I've been for most of my life. This show has made me think about friends I've had in the past who I saw slowly drift away into more concerning situations. While none of them have committed suicide, this show still makes me think about how I could have tried to help them out at least a little. One person I was kind of friends with in middle school started posting more and more far-right content on his Instagram story in high school, and I never tried to talk to him about it. Back in elementary school, I was one of the only friends of this other kid. I stopped talking to him in middle school, but I always saw him in the hallways, always alone. I have no idea where he is now. Like I feel regret over these past friendships. They were some of the few friends I've had in my life, and I still didn't even try to help them. I always wanted to have more friends, but I never pushed myself hard enough to create friendships, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to help people out with issues like bullying. But Ai eventually decides that she needs to correct her mistakes. Well, not actually correct them, but make up for them. She can't bring her friend back from the dead, but she can at least learn to help other people in the present. And this is what I should be doing. The show is saying that this is what the viewer should be doing. If you regret decisions you made in the past, you shouldn't just keep despairing over them. Don't keep believing you can't make a difference in the world, or in your school, or anywhere. You need to stop pretending not to see. You need to get mad, because if you don't, what's going to stop the things you love from disappearing? Many people watch anime just for entertainment, and that's fine. But if you're not trying to see how the characters or situations in the story reflect yourself, if you're not trying to find a way to have stories impact your life, then what makes the point of watching anime different from playing Call of Duty or Tetris? Interpreting a story like this is not hard at all. I wrote this entire video just based on the first episode. I haven't watched that many other video essays about the show, and I haven't seen it a billion times or anything. Wonder Egg Priority isn't hard to understand, and there are so many shows which are even less hard to understand. Go out into the world of anime and find stories that you relate to. You can sit back and enjoy the ride, but you should also be trying to impact your real life as well. If I hadn't watched Evangelion and really tried to decode it with my 15-year-old brain, I would not think about the world how I do now. If I hadn't done the same with Gurren Lagann and Chainsaw Man, I would not be making videos right now. And if I hadn't watched Wonder Egg Priority, I wouldn't be trying to stay in contact with my friends right now before any more of them drift away.